Gaming is a hobby many of us enjoy, and for most of us, it's a hobby that we have enjoyed for the majority of our lives. The video game industry has grown and changed so much since the start of our fandom, and we have all grown and changed with it. But how did us growing up affect the games that we played? And how did the games industry's growth affect us as we grew? Welcome to Insert Coin, where we take a walk down memory lane to answer those very questions and discuss our personal history with video games. One quarter at a time. Hey, what's up and welcome to episode 3 of Insert Coin, the interview show where we divide our lives into quarters and talk about all the games and systems we loved during those times. Joining me today is co-host of the Play Along podcast, Ben. How you doing, Ben?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, man.
Not a problem. Thanks for joining. Before we jump into the episode, why don't you take a second to introduce yourself to everybody? What exactly is the Play Along podcast?
Yeah, so Playing on Podcast is essentially a book club for video games. That's probably the best way to describe it. So we will take a video game, we'll break it into sections, we play each section each week, and then we come together, discuss it, and basically just talk about it. It started off, it was Jared's idea. And he told me about it, and I was like, you need to do this. He was unsure if he wanted to or not. And I was like, this is a brilliant idea. And I almost kind of invited myself onto the podcast in a sense. Because I was like, I will do this with you. And he was like, oh yeah, cool, man. Yeah, I was going to ask you anyway, so that's brilliant. But it started off that we would discuss the games we were going to play in advance, but we've changed it now so that the co-hosts find out the same time as the audience. So it's like a bit of a suspense to it. So I mean, we've played Ocarina of Time was the first one. That was Jared's pick. And then we played Metal Gear Solid. That was my pick. We did Kentucky Route Zero. That was Kai's. We just finished Super Mario RPG. And we are about to start A Plague Tale: Innocence. That was my pick.
Nice.
So, yeah, we just kind of, like I said, we break it up. So with Super Mario, we broke it up into each star piece. So we'd come together, and Jared kind of guides it and discusses the story and the things that are happening, and then we just kind of bounce off of each other from there.
Yeah. The Ocarina of Time is the one that I listened to in Metal Gear because I had played those games already, and I thought it was really interesting, like hearing everyone's kind of thoughts and how they like tackled like different things that the game throws at you, like up until certain points. I was wondering though, has there ever been anyone that you've heard of, or any feedback you've gotten from the audience of anyone who had like played along like with you and then kind of like tuned in as like stopped where you guys stopped? Because that's kind of what I was looking forward to do. It just I didn't have time to like play those specific games.
Yeah, I mean we've had a couple of people say that they're playing along with us at points. So it's been interesting. Recently, the Super Mario RPG was actually a fan recommendation.
Oh, cool.
One of the guys from Main Quest podcast. I had to think then. We've had 2 people recommend things, and I always get confused which one recommended what. But Keith, he recommended Super Mario RPG, and so he would. I think he was playing along with us, but he would sort of message Jared ever so often and be like, "Are you at the Axum Rangers yet? Or how close are you to the Axum Rangers?"
Yeah, no, it's a really, really cool concept. I don't think I don't know every single podcast that exists, but I hadn't never heard of that type of show before. And I just thought it was really, really cool. Regardless of if you've played the games before and you're tuning in to hear their thoughts, or if you haven't played the game before and you want to play along with them, it's a really, really cool show to check out, and I would definitely recommend doing so. Before we jump into this interview, though, since this show, Insert Coin, is still somewhat new, I just want to give a little breakdown on how the show works. If this is by chance your first time listening, what we do is we divide the guest's age by 4, and that creates 4 quarters conveniently. And we use each of those quarters of their lives as kind of a jump in point to chat about all the games that we loved, all the consoles that we played, all the best memories we have of that time of our lives. And yeah, so in order to start, the only thing I need from you, Ben, is to know what year you were born.
I was born in the magical year of 93.
1993. So that would put the first quarter being from 1993 to 1999. But before we start, let's just put a magical coin in the arcade time machine we have here and take a quick peek into that era of gaming.
In the cutthroat video game industry, one word seems to be all-powerful.
The graphics. Better graphics means it's more realistic.
Hey, plumber boy, mustache man, your worst nightmare has arrived.
Critics agree Metal Gear Solid is an absolute masterpiece.
We do this back in Twisted Metal 3 with enough weapons to make any angry driver happy.
When it comes to video games, the more bits, the better, and the new machine from Nintendo is as good as it gets.
ゲームでしか味わえない感動がある。任天堂64ゼルダの伝説。Introducing Super Smash Brothers, where all your favorite characters go toe-to-toe in one 4-player star-studded slam fest.
Sega.
1993 to 1999. The era of the last great console war. The first major format change happened in the 90s with Sega and Sony adopting CD-based games over traditional cartridges. How big was the electronics behemoth Sony's impact on what was originally a 2-player race? Was Nintendo still playing with power, or did Sega just do what Nintendo don't? Tell me, Ben, what devices did you game on in that time? What was your favorite, and do you remember how you got them?
Yeah, so my favorite at this time was probably honestly my Sega MegaDrive. That was like the thing that I played on the most. I had a Game Boy, and I was one of the few who played Pokemon Yellow. That was my preferred game. And the PS1 kind of came later in my life. My parents at first were quite reluctant to let me play video games. And so it was more to do with family friends. So like I had a family friend who had a Mega Drive or a Genesis, as like some people will know it. And the first thing I remember playing was Streets of Rage 2. We would go around. Nice. We would go around and just absolutely like play that game for hours and hours. And eventually, I think I kind of chipped away at my mum and my dad and was like, "I want one." And so I ended up with one, and Sonic the Hedgehog 2. That was the game that like I spent most of my time playing on. To the point where I actually have a bunch of like gaming tattoos on me, but I actually have I don't know if you can see that, is a tattoo of Sonic drowning.
Oh, nice.
Because that is like my one memory of it. Let me see if I can. Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah.
That's
cool.
That's like the thing that's I the guy I went to get it from, he had Sonic with the Chaos Emeralds, and I was like, yeah, but my most vivid memory is that drowning music and just the animation, and like that whole level.
I remember that. I never had a Sega, but I remember that drowning, like just the music being like the most stressful thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Oh
The
yeah,
sound effects and stuff that it makes.
yeah. It's definitely
Yeah.
anxiety inducing. But I mean,
Oh man.
so it's something that will go into like the second quarter of my life as well. That I kind of did the opposite to people. Like a lot of people gamed a lot when they were younger, and then sort of gamed less as they got older. I gamed very little when I was younger, and as I become a teenager and grew older, it becomes something that I picked up more. My parents, my mum especially, she was very adamant about me playing outside as well as playing games. She didn't want me indoors all day playing games. So I was allowed a small amount of time to play games, and then I had to go out with my friends, which at that age is not something I wanted to do at all.
Yeah, Lord Cognito on Twitter. I don't know if you follow him, but his like mantra is earn the right to play. So I guess your mom followed his advice in that.
Yeah,
respect.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. So if the Mega Drive was is your favorite console from that era, do you remember specifically how you got it? Was there anything kind of memorable tied to just physically getting it?
No, because I don't even. As far as I remember, I just was given it one day. I don't think it was even for Christmas or like a birthday or anything. I think I just nagged on my mum and my dad that much that they were like, "Do you know what? Just have it."
They couldn't wait anymore. They couldn't wait till the holidays.
That's it, yeah. And I ended up, I had the Mega Drive, and then I think a little while after I got the Master System. I vaguely remember having the Master System, which was like the little peripheral that went in the top. If I remember correctly, there was like a
It's
little
so much
thin.
different over here. Like I was actually a Nintendo kid, so I'm not like the most fluent in Sega, but from what I remember here, anyway, in Canada, or probably I guess in North America, there was the Sega Genesis, which was kind of like competing with I think the Super Nintendo, and there was like a 32X, Sega 32X, which was like the 32-bit, I believe, adapter that kind of like mutated your Genesis. You like plugged it into the top.
Yeah,
And then you had like a Sega CD that stuck on the side. And
yeah, it was like
I don't
like
know
a
if that's what the
transformer of games console.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's
No, it was really cool.
Sorry. I think that's
No, I was gonna say it was really cool because like my friends had had all the Sega stuff and I had the Nintendo stuff, so we were always able to like kind of hang out at each other's houses and like kind of get best of both worlds.
Oh, that's all right then. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the first quarter of my life is kind of a bit hazy in terms of like video games. There's a lot of really obscure ones. Like I don't know why she had it, but I remember my nan had an Atari 2600. I don't know why.
Oh, nice.
And so I was born in North London, and that's when my first gaming memory is, because I remember being like just under 2 years old and going to my dad's friend's house with him and sitting on their sofa and like watching Tekken 1. They were playing Tekken 1 together and just being like mesmerized by it and being like, what is this? It might have been Tekken 1, it might have been Tekken 2. It was one of the early ones.
On PlayStation.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. So your first memory was watching people play PlayStation, but your first console was the generation before that.
Yeah, that's what's weird, because I think the reason I went for that is because it was what my friend had, and
right.
So I think it was one of those things, like my parents were kind of is he going to stick with it? Isn't he going to stick with it? Like, we don't want to
Right.
sort of jump in the deep end and get him a PlayStation. So I had the Mega Drive almost
Yeah.
as to like test the waters a little bit, and then I got the Game Boy a
Nice.
little bit later on, and then the first half, the first part of the second quarter is when I properly begun gaming, and I got my other consoles.
That's when you sprouted into a pure gamer.
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's pretty cool because like as soon as you find a friend that has the same console as you, like especially back in those days, like or like in the 90s or like whenever you're like between like I don't know, like 1 and 10. As soon as you find a friend that has the same console as you, you basically just like triple or double your library. So that's the smart play in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
And
definitely.
I remember the PS1 being like, at least my parents making it seem like it was like this unobtainable, like super expensive, insane thing. So at least that's what they sold it to me as when I was like 6. So it was probably the best way to go about it for your parents.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it was that thing, like my so I had a sister as well who's 2 years younger than me, and around the time that we moved from where I was born, and started. That's when I started playing the Mega Drive and all of these things. My mum actually wasn't working, so I think it kind of was like a money situation as well to some extent, because it was like, my dad was the sole income, so it was like, well, okay. I mean, don't get me wrong, like a PS1, it wasn't. I mean, it was money. It wasn't anything like, the £500 that you're talking about today for like a next gen console, but it was still it was still a fair chunk of money, So to drop like 250 on a hobby that I might not even carry on, it might just be a fad because a friend of mine plays it. It was something, yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand for sure. I had the same kind of hurdles to overcome with my parents, trying to convince them that it's okay to spend like however much it costs for a PS1 on me. But cool. So before I jump to the next quarter, I just wanted to circle back to the Atari 2600 because it's pretty interesting. That's the first time that console has come up on Insert Coin. You said that you had played it played it because your nan had one. I was just wondering if there's any games that really stand out from there. Because my grandma actually had an Atari 2600 at her house. I didn't get to play it until I found it because it was buried under like, I don't know, 50 years of whatever was in her basement. But yeah, I was wondering what games might stand out from that console.
The one that really, really stands out is Pong. I don't know why. So I remember so I'd seen my dad and his friend play PlayStation, and then I met this friend who had the Mega Drive, and it was like I was kind of instantly hooked. It was all I would talk about. And I believe the Atari was actually my uncle's, one of his old consoles that had just been left there when he moved out. And I'm assuming it would track, knowing how I was as a child. I was a very hyper child. So once I got fixated on something, it was kind of like, it was all I spoke about. So my nan was more than likely like, do you know what? I've got something he can fucking play, because he's just going to keep talking and talking. Like, and
that's amazing.
I think
that's kind of similar to how I found it too, to be honest.
But yeah, I don't know why Pong. Me and my sister would just sit and play Pong, and it was just me and my sister, like, anybody who has siblings that are a similar age to them know how it is. Like, you, until you're like 16, 17, you're just at each other's throats for the most part. I mean, at least in my experience anyway.
Yeah, no, I can confirm.
So it was one of those. I think that's why it stands out, because it was one of those moments where we didn't argue. There was no bickering or anything like that. We just sat and played this game, and so that I think that's why that game in particular sticks out. I couldn't tell you any other game she had. I just remember putting one of the cartridges in and playing Pong.
Did you have ET by any chance?
I wish.
I feel like everyone. Yeah. That was actually the first game I played because I was like, oh, I like that movie. And oh my God, worst game ever.
I was thinking the other day, because so on Play Along Pod, what we do is in between the main series, whoever the main series it was will recommend like an interstitial. So we do like a one-off episode where it might be just play as much as you can. So Jared recently picked his interstitial. He picked the original Doom. So
nice.
We just played as much as we could of Doom in the week. But then Kai, when he done his, he picked Firewatch. And because that was a bit of a shorter game, it's like 5 to 6 hours, we could kind of do it in one sitting and kind of just, talk about it from there. So I was like, do I do it? I feel like ET is a game we need to play for the podcast at some point, like just to experience it.
You could play that game for 6 hours and get absolutely nowhere.
I've seen the AVGN episode. I know.
Yeah. Have you seen the documentary of when they tried to find all the copies of it in the landfill?
No, I really wanted to, because that. So as much as I'm a gamer, I also enjoy the behind the scenes side of things. So, we was talking before the recording about the website that I used to run and things like that. That's where that came from, because I was interested in the reporting side and, the behind the scenes, the history of it. And it was born from one in a Discord, like a discourse about this thing that I love so much. And so the ET documentary caught my attention, because that's one of those stories that's like, people kind of blow it off. They're like, oh, okay, like it was a crap game and they had to bury the copies in the desert. Like, people don't understand that very nearly killed the game industry before it could even blossom.
Yep.
Like, that was very nearly, we wouldn't even have what we had today.
Yeah.
If
they do go over that in the doc too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's one of those things that's such a pivotal moment for a medium, and people underestimate gaming as well. It makes more money than movies and TV combined on a yearly basis.
Music.
Exactly. Like, people don't realize how much of a juggernaut it is, and it very nearly wasn't, just because of one game.
Yep. Well, I think you just confirmed that that's going to be your interstitial on Play Along, right? You heard it first on Insert Coin. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the second quarter, which will take us to the year 2000, the millennium, 2000 to 2007. But again, before we start, let's put a coin in that arcade time machine and take a quick peek into 2000 to 2007.
One of the most eagerly awaited video games finally goes on sale.
Preparing to rewrite retail history.
Video game is expected to have bigger first-day revenues than any movie has ever had an opening day at the box office.
The latest video game war is heating up tonight. Nintendo's GameCube system is about to hit the stores.
Far from the Mushroom Kingdom, among a people enchanted by sunshine, Mario has taken a break from the hopping, the bopping, and saving the princess.
All to fulfill his destiny, which is, above all else, to save me.
The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker.
Good afternoon, I'm Donna Gregory. And I'm Heidi Deja. There are waiting lists and tickets just to stand in line and get a chance to buy PlayStation 2.
A story of one man's struggle to save mankind from extermination and his quest to win the heart of the woman he loves.
And a new myth will be written in the blood of the old. God of War, rated M for mature.
Just like the Xbox, it is truly the future of video games, and I'm very excited to simply be a part of it if you smell what The Rock is cooking.
I just got into Xbox Live. I have this really great high-speed connection, and
I need a weapon.
There are those who said this day would never come. What are they to say now?
Rated M for mature.
2000 to 2007, we had our first casualty of the great polygon war of the 90s in Sega, but a new challenger stepped up to the plate to take their place in the fight for our living rooms with Microsoft's Xboxes. As TVs got bigger, so did gaming resolutions as the dawn of HD gaming was upon us, and a little thing called Xbox Live showed up to change how we played games together forever. Ben, what devices did you game on in that era? What were your favorites? And do you remember how you got them?
Yeah, so having survived the absolute beast that was Y2K, I began blossoming as a gamer. This was kind of when I really hit the gaming, and I hit it hard. It started off, my parents got me a PS1. I don't remember how I got it, truth be told. More than likely a birthday or Christmas present. But that was it. If I wasn't hooked before, I was hooked then. I wrote down here just some of the games, like standout games I remember. Is Metal Gear Solid 1 was the big one, because that was the game that kind of, when we played it for the podcast, I said it was the game that made me an adult gamer. You know, it was when it stopped being Sonic and it stopped being like these kind of more family friendly things, and it was like, no, we've got a giant robot that's threatening a nuclear holocaust. Like it's a completely different theme. But then also like Crash Bandicoot. Me and my dad would play Tekken 3 a lot. And it got to the point where I could never beat my dad. I could never beat my dad at Tekken 3. And so what I would do is, back in the days of Yonder, when games still had manuals, the manual for Tekken 3 had all of the combos in it. And so I would just memorize the combos of the characters I played while my dad was at work, and then he'd get home at like 7. I'd been home for like 4 hours training and practicing. And it got to the point where I was fairly good with all of the characters, and I started to get cocky, and I was letting my dad pick my character for me, and still beating him. And then in the end, he was like, "You know what? I'm not playing this with you anymore." Like I just, he was like, "I can't put in the hours that you're putting in. Like this is not fair."
It must have been a sad day for him.
But another big one that we played was Bomberman. Bomberman, me, my dad, and my sister, we had one of those. I can never remember what they were called. The extension peripheral that let you plug in multiple controllers.
Multi-tap?
That was their multi-tap. Yeah. We had one of those, and we would play 3-person Bomberman. That took up a lot of our time. And then the other big one was Gran Turismo. Gran Turismo 2 specifically for me, but Gran Turismo was kind of the game that I wouldn't say I'm like a fanatic, but I have a soft spot for racing games. More simulation style games than arcade games, but I appreciate both of them either way. And then this was like, I don't know if you guys had it in Canada, but like over here in the UK, you could rent, obviously, like, I mean, from Blockbuster, you could like rent video games. And actually, I think I remember you saying about
Yeah, we
renting
had that.
stuff. So that was like a nice little compromise with my parents, because it was like, okay, we don't need to buy him this game, but we can rent him this game with the Blockbuster card. So it was like a nice little compromise where I could have my hobby and it wasn't burning a hole in their pocket.
Right.
The one console I do, ironically, I remember getting the console, but I don't remember many games I played for it, was the Game Boy Advance. And the reason I remember that is because my parents did that one thing that I feel that every parent does at some point in their child's life, where they take everything out and individually wrap it. So
Okay.
my Game Boy was wrapped in like 6 layers of wrapping paper, and the cartridge, they took the cartridge out of the case and wrapped that, and like it's not a memory in terms of like, I was like, oh my god, because at the end of it I was like, just what is this? Like, just, I was opening like packs of batteries, and I was just like, why am I getting batteries for Christmas? But yeah, I mean, the PS1 was kind of the thing that kicked it all off.
Awesome. Who was your favorite character in Tekken 3? Because I had that game and I played a shit ton of Tekken 2. I want to see who you pick.
It was
because one character is really cheap, and if you say that,
oh no, me and my dad had a rule that we wasn't allowed to play Eddie. That was the character that was like off limits. Eddie was off limits, and I can never pronounce his Huang, the kickboxer.
I think it's just
Huang. He was off limits as well, because he was just kind of super spammy with the X and circle kicks. So I like playing as Paul Phoenix. Paul Phoenix was my go-to.
Me too.
Yeah,
because he had a leather jacket, and like he had almost like Guile's haircut, but a little like more vertical.
Yeah. He was a badass man, and it was also, it was part of his aesthetic, because he was like this badass biker dude, and like, but he was also friends with Law, and Law was my dad's main, so it was kind of like playing into that a little bit as well. If I didn't play, my dad would play Law and Brian, and I would play Paul and Lee, and my dad hated when I played Lee because he could never understand what was coming, because Lee has that kind of like, almost like he changes style partway through. Like, you can do like a drunken master part, and you can, if you know what you're doing, you can flow it together well. But yeah, Paul Phoenix was the one.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think I definitely played all 3 of the first 3 Tekken games. I think I played one the most because I came with my PS1, I believe. And in that one, Jack was broken because he had like, you could just spam, I think, square, and he just did like this uppercut combo that he would just do forever. It was like he was like the E Honda of Tekken. But I remember I loved Paul, but I also really I can't remember if he did it in Tekken 3, but I know for sure in Tekken 1 Yoshimitsu had like a sword attack that was like very hard to land, but if you did, it was almost like an instant KO. And I would just constantly be trying to land that. So, and King, I mean, he was pretty cool too. He had a tiger head. So
yeah,
I didn't know until Tekken 3 that it was a mask. I just literally thought he was I thought he was a tiger man or a leopard man.
I liked Yoshimitsu. Yoshimitsu did still have that move. He kind of brought the sword back over his head, and there was like a glow, and then you would stab them.
Yeah.
And I liked that. And King, I hated King. I hated playing against King because my dad knew the grab combo, and I never managed to land to the grab combo. So I would just do he has like a kick where he like turns his whole body into them and just knocks them onto the floor. So I would just be doing that the whole time, anytime my dad got close to me.
Sweet. Another game that you brought up that has been brought up, I mean, a small sample size, I'll admit, this is episode 3, but it's been brought up on every single episode of Insert Coin. in the same quarter for the same reason, and that's Metal Gear Solid. Now, I have the exact same opinion as you. Like, I played games. I have a very similar trajectory. Like, quarter one games were a toy I played with. I also played with a Batmobile. I also played with my small soldiers toys. Like, I played with all my toys. But then quarter two, it became my favorite thing to do. And then playing Metal Gear Solid was like a light bulb went off where you're like, wow, games are very cinematic. And I think that was intentional from Hideo Kojima. Like, even just the intro of the game, you have like the cast members' names coming up, like the same thing that you would see in a movie. So I'm wondering if you feel the same way in the terms of where, like, you kind of said this already, but in terms of it making you like an adult gamer or feel more like gaming is for adults, maybe I misinterpreted that. But if you think that at this moment when you play and finish Metal Gear Solid for the first time, if that kind of changed what you are looking for in games, because like before you were seemingly playing a lot of like games that you could play co-op or games you could play with your family, games where it's about like kind of the gameplay and having fun with the people around you. Whereas this one, Metal Gear, is way more like introspective. It's a single player game, and the joy that you're getting from it is just being in this world and being told this like incredible story. So I'm wondering if you were to walk into Blockbuster before Metal Gear Solid and look at the back of the game case, and then after, with the stuff that you're looking for when you're choosing what game to rent, do you think that was a turning point?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I actually remember how I got introduced to Metal Gear Solid, and it was actually so when you went into Blockbuster, they had like this, we used to call it the bin. It was like just like a little box that was like games that were clearance and things like this that they couldn't rent anymore. And I remember like we'd been playing like Tekken 3 and Crash Bandicoot and things like that. And whenever my dad went off to rent a movie, I would always go to the clearance bin. That was like, I found some gems in there. I found like Siphon Filter, and then other times I'd find like
nice
G-Police, which is like a really shitty, like futuristic cop game where you fly a helicopter. It is but I remember picking up Metal Gear Solid, and this was before I'd played any of them, before I played Siphon Filter. And I remember looking at the back, and it was like tactical espionage, and I was like, oh my god, this sounds like a movie. Like, what the hell? And my dad was like, yeah, okay, cool, I'll buy it for you. It's going to be an adult game. I think he was kind of thinking he could play it as well, because we sort of shared the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I booted it up, and as soon as that I think it's like a Gaelic song kicks in the intro, and the woman's singing, like harmonizing, and Snake's going through the water up towards the tank, up towards the hangar. Instantly I was just like, wow, it completely changed. Like, from that moment, as soon as the music started, as soon as the cinematic entrance happened, that was it. My life in terms of gaming was never the same.
It's incredible. And like I said before, like, I anticipate this won't be the last time it comes up, but every episode I've done, every person I've talked to has been kind of in this similar age bracket as us. And it's the same story with Metal Gear. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's, at the time, I didn't really think about it, but looking back, like, it makes sense, because Kojima, I mean, like, total disclosure, I love Kojima. Like, absolutely love everything that man does. I don't care what people say. I love Death Stranding. Death Stranding was a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. Not for everybody.
What about Castlevania?
Okay.
I love those Castlevania games. I'm not trying to trap you. I'm just wondering how deep your love for Kojima actually is.
I'd have to revisit them, because I don't remember much about them, if I'm being honest. But
all right, I'll let you choose that over ET in your interest, if you want to.
Okay, you're giving me things to consider, so I like it. But yeah, I mean, he's a very movie inspired person. You know, his love of film is public knowledge at this point, and so looking back, it's clear to see how much of an influence that was on Metal Gear. But even if you go before that, like Police Noughts and Snatchers and things like that, they still had elements like that to it. But yeah, pivotal moment for me in terms of my gaming career. But yeah, so I've got other things here. Like you said about how when you're younger, maybe not so much these days, but definitely like sort of back in this time, you would borrow games from your friends, or you would even just like go around your friend's house just to play a game with them, just to watch them play a game. So I remember I had a school friend, and he had a Nintendo 64, and that was how I was introduced to like Pokemon Coliseum, Diddy Kong Racing, which I remember very fondly, but looking back at the controller for the Nintendo 64, I'm not sure how amazing that game would control.
Didn't age well.
No, but that and Super Mario 64, those were like the free games I remember playing around his. And then later on, when he got GameCube, we would play. I watched him play Super Mario Sunshine. And he is also the one who introduced me to Mario Party, which is still a franchise that I love. And I feel a lot of people love it, but I feel it gets looked over still to some extent as like a Mario spin-off. But yeah, but the later half of the quarter was when I upgraded and I got my PS2. And this was, as much as I loved the PS2, the PS1, the PS2 is probably my favorite console of this quarter. Just because, I mean, before I came on here, I was like writing down the games that I remember, and like I didn't even have to look online to sort of see the time frame or anything. I just remember Metal Gear 2, Metal Gear 3, GTA Vice City, Burnout 3 Takedown. That game needs a fucking remaster. Like, that's one of the few games that I would actually like. I'm not big on remasters and remakes. I feel like it's been overdone at this point, and it's kind of just done almost for the sake of it. But Burnout 3 Takedown is a game that I would buy in a heartbeat if they remade it. SSX Tricky, that's another one that was great. We called it Canis Canum Edit, but you guys anywhere else would have called it Bully, which was like the Rockstar game.
Wait, what did you guys call it?
We had to, so essentially the UK government decided they weren't allowed to call it Bully, so we had to call it Canis Canum Edit. It's like Latin for something. I can't remember what it stands for.
Holy
but
I literally have never heard of that in my life.
Yeah, the UK government wouldn't let Rockstar sell the game in the UK titled Bully. So if you buy a UK copy, it's titled Canis Canum Edit.
Do you have a UK copy?
I wish.
I feel like that's probably worth a lot.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's. We'll get into it because I later on I ended up selling it all. But looking back now, I wished I didn't.
Yeah, because I think Xbox. Well, it was probably, it might have been on Sony too, but I know for sure Xbox like re-released Bully in like the Xbox One game packaging, because I have a copy. So I'm wondering if they still stuck with that alternate name, or if they just didn't release it again.
It would be interesting. I mean, it's apparently it's Latin for dog eat dog.
That's fitting.
So
clever.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I know it. No, it's actually on the. I remember seeing it on the PS4 store. As Canis Canum Edit, it's not down as Bully here in the UK, so it's still still not allowed to do it. But yeah,
that's crazy.
That was a big one. And this is when I started like playing more like sort of adventure games as well, because I would play like Prince of Persia, like Sands of Time was a big game from that period for me. I never got on the God of War hype. That was never something that I played, like the sort of earlier God of Wars and things like that. Even Devil May Cry, I think that was a bit later, but even Devil May Cry, I never jumped on personally. But
what about any JRPGs? I know that was kind of like the main calling card for the PS2, at least with people that I know, because I never really had one.
No, surprisingly, my RPG experience didn't start until next quarter, which is
okay,
which is crazy because looking back, I don't know why I never played an RPG before the first one that I played, but yeah, no, I'm gutted now because it's one of those things that you look back and like, yeah, I used to get shit in school for playing video games and like liking comic books and like, yeah, dude, yeah, like you would have like that small group of people who like openly expressed that they played video games, but then if you played video games what other people would deem as too much, then it kind of become like a oh, he's a geek, he's a nerd, like, you know, fucking like it was a reason for contention in school. So it was like, I don't know who
for you at this point it would be like junior high or like late elementary, like in terms of when this was happening.
Let's work this out. 2007, I would have been 14. So yeah, this would have been like what we call secondary. So it'd be like elementary, yeah, like early elementary school, that sort of time.
Those assholes, man.
I know, and I look back now, and
it
I'm
was
like,
kind of like that here too.
I look back and I'm like, I sold all my stuff, and now all of a sudden everybody wants to be a retro collector, and trying to buy back my collection is just like, I got I bought an original PS1 recently, and I was like, let me like buy Final Fantasy 7 because I've never played that, and let me try a bunch of stuff. I bought a GameCube recently, went to buy a game for the GameCube. Impossible. Like the prices are like, I don't remember, they're not extortionate, but when there's like 6 games that you want and they're $40 each, like it's a lot of money to drop.
Yep. Yeah, Nintendo games, they hold their value like forever.
Yeah,
it sucks.
Yeah, my
the best part about being a best Xbox fan is they don't.
My other half, she's like she's big on Nintendo, and she wanted to, because I got the GameCube, and she wanted to get some older Nintendo games, and she was like, oh yeah, they'll be like $5-10 like easily. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry, girl, not at all. Like, you want the original Luigi's Mansion, you're forking out like $35-40 for that, like easily, if not more.
Yeah,
Nintendo's just, I don't know why, but Nintendo's just that one console that never becomes cheaper, even secondhand, like very rarely.
Yeah, no, I found a Wii that my girlfriend had in storage. I didn't even know we had it, and haven't really been a huge Nintendo fan since probably Super Nintendo. But I figured like, I might like, the Switch was like kind of hyping up, and like a lot of my friends still like Nintendo, so I thought I'll try to get some games, and I did find some good deals. But like Mario Galaxy, like it should cost like $5, like you said, and it's like 40-50 in Canada too. Like we have like a really low population compared to like the UK, so there's a lot less people that are selling, which means the demand's higher and our currency's all jacked up, so it's even harder. And I didn't sell all my games necessarily by choice. Like my parents sold a few of them, and the ones I did sell, I like got totally ripped off at like GameStop, so I had to rebuild my collection, and I got a lot of it. It's not done yet, but luckily Xbox stuff is like super cheap. I don't know how good the camera quality is, but that's, I don't know if
it's a fair little collection going on. Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. But that was like a decade worth of rebuilding and still not done. And it's
Yeah.
still not even anything special compared to what some people have. But yeah, that was a bad decision that most kids made. So I wouldn't feel too bad. You're not alone.
No, it's one of those. It's almost like a rite of passage. Like it has to be done.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if did you have anything else that you wanted to say about quarter two?
No, as I say, quarter two. The only other standout game I had was a different family friend from the one who had the MegaDrive. Introduced me to the original Xbox because I never owned one. And
okay,
we would play Enter the Matrix. That's the one game that I remember playing, and I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it.
From Shiny. Yeah, that game was great. I have that and Path of Neo. It's they need to make a new Matrix game. I was hoping like before last summer. I remember like people would always ask this question on Twitter, like, "Oh, what should Rocksteady make next?" And I was like, "They should make a Matrix game next."
100%.
But now, obviously, they're making the Suicide Squad one. But I'm hoping that with the movie that's coming out in the fall or the winter, I think it's December, the next Matrix movie.
Soon?
Hopefully, that will. Yeah, I'm surprised there's no trailer yet. I'm sure that will come soon, but it could also get delayed. Who knows? But it's supposed to come out in December, so I'm hoping that sparks kind of the IP a little bit, and maybe there's a game in the works, and hopefully it's like a real effort, not like a movie tie-in game. But yeah, one of the most underutilized IPs ever. It's so good. Like the movies are so good. I love it.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely so he was my mum's friend actually. So he wasn't even somebody who was my age, but we would go around like with my mum, and she would like go to see him and his wife, and his wife would start talking, and me and him would just go, and he was like, right, you've got to watch The Matrix, because I'd never seen it. So he introduced me to the movies, and as much as I'm probably going to get shit for this, I enjoy the third one. It's not the best one in the series, don't get me wrong, but I enjoy the third movie. And
they're all good.
They're all good. Don't get me wrong, they do deteriorate a little bit, but they still stand like on their own. I think the problem when it comes to things like that is that like people will compare it to the previous entries, and I'm not personally one for that. Like to me, it's like I like to think of it as like standalone. Like it's the same universe and it builds off the story, but it's its own entity. You know, it's its own thing. But
yeah.
We watched the movies and we finished the third one, and I was like, man, that was awesome. And he was like, yeah, but what if I told you they had a game? And I was like, wait, what? And he was like, yeah, and you can like wall run and flip off and shit. And I was like,
no, you can't play as Neo.
That was the only downside to it. But yeah.
Do you remember these characters that were there for like 8 seconds? You get to be them.
Yeah, it was definitely underutilized. Yeah. Okay, but like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have like a new Matrix entry, or would you rather have a full remake of Burnout 3 Takedown?
For games?
Yeah.
Who's making the Matrix game? Is it Rocksteady?
Yeah, why not? Let's say Rocksteady. Go.
Yeah, okay, Matrix, 100%. Not even it would never even question it. If it was like, I don't know, like Toys for Bob, or like a studio that makes like I guess Toys for Bob's actually come a long way, but like, you know what I mean? Like if it was like the old Marvel games before Spiderman, like that were just to sell movie tickets. If it was that, I maybe Burnout, but then again, it would also depend on who did it. I actually like, I have for my Xbox, I have like the HDMI adapter, and I have Burnout 3, and it holds up. Like that game, you could play it 16:9. It doesn't look like, it's not 4K, obviously, but still runs really well and still plays really well. So like, I could technically play it. Whereas this new Matrix game with modern gameplay mechanics and Rocksteady's like track record,
yeah.
There's no question.
As long as it's not microtransaction lidden, I don't need to pay for like a different coat for Neo or something. I don't want to pay for Morpheus's glasses. Just
No, those would be pre-order bonus. Awesome. Well, I think that wraps up quarter 2. So let's move into the next quarter, which will be 2008 to 2014. But before we jump over there, let's put another coin in the arcade time machine. Let's do it.
We would like to play.
Do you have what it takes to wield the sword? The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword.
My past is not a memory. What's past is prologue.
Albion. A land bursting with life, beauty, and light. Its people unaware of the darkness that awaits them.
In darkness, a doom sweeps the land. These are the closing days of the Third Era and the final hours of my life.
You're competing with a psychopathic war criminal for a mythological gemstone?
I killed people, smuggled people, sold people.
When you put it that way, it does sound pretty stupid.
Yeah, thanks for the input, Jeff.
I know what this nation needs. I will give you justice.
You are, all of you, vermin.
Tomorrow we launch the greatest military campaign in our history.
Your world will burn until its surface is but glass.
Cocky bastard just loves to run his mouth.
I didn't come here to run from the Hellcast. Order the attack!
Shipmaster, they outnumber us 3-1.
Then it is an even fight.
Where are we going? To finish what we started!
Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
2008 to 2014, for the first time in over a decade, Sony finally met its match as the Xbox 360 took the world by storm, but they would not go silently into the night as they prepared to get their revenge with the next generation consoles in the PlayStation 4. Meanwhile, Nintendo decided to play a new game, changing the status quo and fighting raw power with innovation, releasing the Wii and expanding gaming's target audience to unprecedented levels. Ben, what devices did you game on? What was your favorite? And do you remember how you got them?
Yeah, so this is I did not do any Nintendo at all during this period. I don't know why. I never really latched onto the Wii personally. I enjoyed playing it, but never enough to look into getting it, you know. But this was another big turning point for my life, because in 2008 I met my girlfriend, who I'm still with now to this day. And in late 2008 we'd been together about 5 months towards Christmas, and I didn't have any money to buy her a Christmas gift, but it was the first kind of serious relationship I had, so I wanted to buy her a Christmas gift. So I actually sold my PS2 and all my games so that I could buy her a Christmas gift. I walked out of Game, which is like our version of GameStop and stuff, with 30 quid for my PS2 and about 9 games. And I was like, do you know what? Like, yeah, I mean, 2008, I was 15. I was 15, I was young, and I was in your love, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, 30 quid, it's fine, let's go, okay. Yeah, so
I'm in pain right now.
I bought her the gift. She still has it to this day. That's nice. So it's a cute little teddy she still has. But again, like between 2007 to early 2009, there was still this kind of principle of, like, you know, being outside more than being indoors playing games. But that changed in 2009 for my birthday because I pulled money together and I bought myself an Xbox 360. That was the console that, like, I was like, I'm not interested in the PS3. I want the Xbox 360. My friends are talking about it. It sounds dope. That is the console that I'm going to get. So I pulled the money together and I bought that. And Xbox 360 introduced me to two things that I still love to this day and are still very near to my heart, and that's Gears of War and RPGs. This was the first time I really experienced an RPG, which is kind of crazy. The first RPG I ever played was Fable 2, and that was it. From that moment, I was just absolutely hooked. It was like, I don't know how to explain what I felt. It was kind of like Metal Gear had kind of, and 2 and 3 had kind of prepped me for these like deep narrative heavy storylines, and Fable 2 kind of felt like the closest thing at that point. You know, there was the good and evil system, you had consequences to what you were doing, and that game, I was like, okay, I really, really like this. And that led into my addiction to Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. Those were like, Fallout New Vegas is still, it's my second favorite RPG, I'd say personally. It used
Really?
to, yeah. Personally, I would say, I really, really like it. I mean, granted, I haven't played it in like 12 years, so I might have to go back and revisit it. It's on the Games Pass, so I might jump in and give that a go. But maybe it was off the hype of Fable 2, but like the whole kind of reputation system, and like, you know, the factions and how you acted towards them, and if they saw you in the wasteland, how they interacted with you. It was, I'm not big on Skyrim. I enjoy Skyrim. I don't have the love for it that other people do. To me, Fallout New Vegas was like one of the last true living worlds that Bethesda did. Like, I played Fallout 4. I wouldn't really like it. It was just kind of, it felt like a rehash of 3 in New Vegas, to be honest. Like, it was like, I mean, New Vegas was Obsidian. It wasn't even bloody Bethesda. Like, it's, you know, so. But yeah, so that kind of started my love of RPGs, and that's something that carried on today. But yeah, Gears of War was the big series for me on the Xbox 360. I actually, when I bought my 360, I actually ended up with Gears of War 2, and that was the first one I played.
Okay.
I mean, mechanically speaking, Gears of War 2 to me is the best one in the franchise. Like, a lot of people, like, I don't know what it was. Like, 1 was good, but 2 just felt like such a step, and like the story as well, like everything with Dom, and like, you know, I'm not going to go into too much of that, but like everything that happened there. But Gears, so I had Gears 2, and then my dad played Gears 2, and he absolutely loved it. And he actually went out and bought Gears of War 1. And he was like, I need to know what happened before this. So he bought Gears of War 1, I played that, and then I bought Gears of War 3, and we played that. And yeah, I love that series. Gears of War 3 is responsible for probably my first and my most visceral reaction to a video game. Like, I mean, pure emotional reaction.
The ending? Or, well, not necessarily ending. I know what moment you're talking about. I won't spoil
the gas
it,
station.
Yeah.
I literally screamed and I was shouting at my TV, and like my mum come upstairs. She was like, "What's wrong? What the hell's going on?" And when I told her it was a video game, she literally just shook her head and walked out. I was like, "You don't, you don't understand.
These are real emotions, Mom.
You don't understand."
Yeah.
But yeah, 360 was a big one for me. Me and my friend at the time, we would play a lot, and I mean a lot, of Left 4 Dead 2. That was our big jam. Like, I would go over his to stay over, and from like easily from like 8 p.m. till 4 in the morning, we would just be grinding through Left 4 Dead 2, just doing things like taking it in turns to like try and solo a witch and see who could last the longest and things like that, you know. So that was a big one. LA Noire was a game that I really love as well. And I'd like to revisit. I'm pretty sure they remastered it for like the PS4 and the Xbox One. So I would like to revisit that, because that was, I like the experience. It's not for everyone, I don't think, but I liked the experience of. I felt like a detective. You know, that was the big thing for me. So yeah, that was kind of like my Xbox 360 days. But in 2012, so again, jumping all the way ahead a couple of years, I started university. I went off to do a psychology degree, and something that you and people listening might have noticed is that I haven't mentioned online gaming up until this point, and that's
right. Yeah,
that's because we didn't have internet when I was growing up. Like, genuinely, we didn't have an internet connection because, again, my parents were very big on like physically going out and experiencing life and like sort of, you know, not being stuck behind a screen. So the idea of taking this hobby that I already do so much and then allowing me to interact with people, they kind of rightly knew that it would draw me away from going outside. So it was just something that we avoided. Like, they were very old-fashioned in that kind of sense.
Yeah, I thought it was suspicious when you said that you thought that Gears 2 was like mechanically the best, because Gears 2 had the like most broken gun in the game with the sawed off in multiplayer, and the servers were complete trash when it came out.
See,
so I was like, did he even play Gears 2? Like, what is he talking about? But that makes complete sense now.
I didn't experience any of that at all.
Okay.
I mean, I do kind of feel like I missed out a little bit because I didn't experience the like. Everyone memes about like the toxic cult lobbies, and I never experienced any of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
really?
Yeah, I never, you know, like, I would say to my mum, like, oh, like, my friends are like playing online, like they're playing their games online together. They don't have to leave the house. She's like, no, like, what are you doing? Go outside.
Said the word house.
That's it, man. It was like a trigger word. That was it.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2012, I was going to uni. I was moving out. The place I was going to had Wi-Fi, so I thought, you know what? Fuck this. I want a PS3. I want that free online. I'm not paying for Xbox Live. I want that free online experience. And my dad was really big on Xbox, so he actually offered to buy my Xbox off of me so that I could put the money towards a PS3. So
smart, man.
Yeah. I mean, he'd say that, but I mean, there was
had to stay on brand.
there was a moment where I can't remember what I was trying to do. I think I was trying to free up some space on my Xbox 360 hard drive, and like my dad is what we would call a completionist. He likes doing it. So he had got all of the campaign trophies that he could get on Gears 1, Gears 2. He was most of the way through Gears 3 getting all of the campaign I mean, like, all collectibles, everything that you could do. Painstaking number of hours. And to try and clear up space on my Xbox 360 hard drive, not knowing what the word format meant, I formatted my Xbox 360 hard drive and like just wiped everything. And yeah,
He wanted a refund.
Yeah, the look on his face was it was something, I'll tell you that.
I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah,
son.
that's it. That sums it up perfect. Yeah, but yeah, PS3 was next when I was at uni, and this was when I kind of forgot about Xbox, truth be told, and I become a full PlayStation fanboy. I would play like a Battlefield 4 online with friends. That was like super fucking fun. I loved that. But then it was also the exclusives. Like I borrowed Uncharted from a friend of mine, played 1, 2, and 3. Absolutely loved them. Played Heavy Rain. Absolutely loved that game as well. It's probably not aged amazingly looking back at it, but at the time when I played it, I loved it. But the big one was The Last of Us. That was like the fucking standout thing, to the point like I showed you I have the Sonic tattoo. I also have a Squirtle Evolution tattoo, Crash Bandicoot, a Bomberman, but then I have not my microphone, apologies. I have the Firefly logo sprayed on my arm because The Last of Us, if Metal Gear was the game that made me like an adult gamer, The Last of Us was the game that made me respect games as an art form. And that was kind of like the big thing that came from that game, because up until that point I was like, yeah, this is like, these games have these great stories and they look graphically amazing, blah 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 blah. And I mean, I can tell you I call it the giraffe scene. I don't know what other people call it, but
that's my PlayStation banner on my account, is that giraffe scene.
Yeah, so it's that moment where, like, I mean, I won't spoil anything of the story, but there's this moment where it's towards the end of the game, and the whole time Ellie has just been this like badass, sarky teenager who has like gone from being very hesitant to like willing to defend Joel and be there for him and have his back. And you've kind of watched her mature over the course of this journey, in a sense, and you've watched the two of them grow closer. And then she comes across the giraffe in the town, and it's like a snap of a finger, she goes back to being a child, and you completely forget that she is a kid. She's a kid who was born in this world. She doesn't know anything beforehand. And so that scene when I was kind of like, no, okay, there's more to video games than just a good story. Like this is actual like movie style stuff. If movies can be considered art, then video games can be considered art. So that was the big turning point.
Yeah, definitely. I can remember kind of having the same kind of epiphany with The Last of Us. I think it was, for me, like before that, like I would view things like the last level in like Halo CE to be like these really epic kind of action set piece moments, were just like Hollywood scale in terms of like comparing it to like, I don't know, like Transformers or like Fast and the Furious. Like it's like on par with Hollywood in that respect, or Uncharted, in Uncharted 2, when like the hotel or the buildings are crashing and you're trying to like that part.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, this is Hollywood level for like its action set pieces. But The Last of Us, I think it's slightly dulled for me, because I think the first time that I really made that connection where like video game writing is on par, or in a lot of cases superior to film, was actually, for me, it was BioShock. But I had the exact same feelings with The Last of Us. The Last of Us, where it kind of one-ups BioShock, is in its animations, because it's able to convey emotions better because the animations are so good, especially like the facial animations, and the voice performances are, again, like the performance aspect of it is at or above most movies. So I think that's where that kicks in. But between BioShock and The Last of Us, for me in that generation, that 100% agree. That's where they already had reached film in terms of a action set piece level and in like adrenaline kind of aspect. But those games, and there's probably others that I missed too, but those games really is what brought it up to match or exceed film from an emotional and storytelling, like writing perspective.
Yeah.
I have the exact same memory.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like, if your Call of Duties and your Uncharted are like the Fast and Furious, then The Last of Us is like an Inception, or like, this kind of top tier story that isn't just a story. Like, you genuinely relate to these characters. So yeah, that was a big turning point. But the thing in this quarter that changed my life the most was when I started the website. That was the big turning point. 2012, first year of university. Basically, I had already done what we called an A-level. So it's essentially after compulsory education. It's like the first 2 years of like further education. So I'd done that, and I did psychology during those 2 years. And then I went off to university to do psychology. But the first year of psychology at university is essentially the 2 years of the A-levels that I'd already done. So I knew, I'm not being cocky, I knew everything they were covering, to the point where like I was getting like 95s and 90 out of 100 on my essays, because I spent 2 years learning the stuff. It was like fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need something to do to keep myself busy, because this is just like, this feels tedious at the minute. So I started an Instagram page called Games Bulletin. And the whole idea was that it was a short caption, or shortish caption, of news based around a certain topic. So I'd post a picture of the relevant game and then post a part of the news story, and started to build a bit of traction. And I was like, do you know what? We've got people engaging. I reckon I can turn this into a website. I reckon I can make this like a real thing. So I ended up actually reaching out to a couple of people who were like really active with the Instagram page. It's actually how I met Jared. Me and Jared met through Games Bulletin, and I actually approached him and said like, hey, I'm thinking of making this more serious. Would you be interested in being a part of it? He said, yeah. And it kind of went from there. And a really, really close mate of mine, Dan, as well. That's how I met him, through the website. But that kind of, the end of that quarter of like 2012 to 2014, it was still kind of early days of the website. But deciding to do that was what changed me going into the future, because I decided if I was going to have a website, I wanted to do a YouTube channel. So I built myself a PC. At that time, I didn't really use it for gaming. It was mainly for editing, but later on, I would be using it for PC gaming. And I decided that if I was going to be a video game outlet and report for a video game outlet, then I needed the current console. So I bought myself a PS4 day one. And
nice.
Yeah, PS4 was... I mean, at this point of like, the PS4 released like what, late 2013?
Yeah, I think November 2013.
Yeah, so PS4 November 2013. So I mean, the end of this quarter is still in its infancy. But even then, like, I would play like The Evil Within, Metal Gear Solid 5. I would play Drive Club. A lot of people bash Drive Club because it was supposed to be like a PS launch title, and there was a big ass delay. But if you take that away from it, like mechanically, it was actually a really, really good racing simulator. And I feel like a lot of people overlook it because of the almost controversy about the delay and things like that. But big ones at this point for me on the PS4 were Metal Gear Solid 5 and Alien Isolation. Alien Isolation still holds a really, really soft spot in my heart. I fucking love that game with an absolute passion.
One of the best games ever made.
100%.
I am
Hands down.
100%. Yeah. Best movie game easily.
Yeah.
But overall, one of the best games ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
It's a lot of people I've spoken to say that they prefer Outlast to Alien Isolation. And
I don't believe they played Alien Isolation then.
No, right? It's like you. I mean, for anyone who hasn't experienced it, it's just a survival horror set in the universe. But the big drawing point is that you're being chased by a xenomorph, by an alien, but its movements are randomly generated, and it will do things like it will follow sounds that you make. If you drop something on the floor, or if you knock something, it will be attracted to that noise, which can bite you in the ass because you can attract it when you don't want to, but you can also lure it into an area and then hide and try and escape past it that way. But it's just one of the most tense survival horrors that I've played. Admittedly, full disclosure, I haven't played many, but it does have a really, really soft spot in my heart. I love that game.
You played it on PlayStation 4, right?
Yes, I did, yeah.
So on the Xbox version, I don't know if you know this, you probably do, but on the Xbox version, yeah, if you make noise in the game, it will like attract
you had the Connect.
But on the Xbox, if you made noise in real life, it could attract the alien too.
Yeah.
So like there was a time where I was like in a like you can hide in lockers in the game, and the alien was like in the room. I was in the locker, and like there's a mechanic in the game where like you have to do some sort of button input or some sequence to kind of hold your breath. And I was doing that, and then like my girlfriend just like opens the door and is like, "What do you want for dinner?" And it's just like instantly the alien heard her and just killed me. And it was just like that type of experience. Like Kinect wasn't the best thing ever, but like that moment was like that made the Kinect like shine right there. The other thing I was gonna say is if you have a gaming PC, because Alien Isolation's on Game Pass for PC, if like it doesn't like. It is still good to play. Like it does hold up if you play it on Xbox One or PS4, but on PC you can like it's going to be at 60 frames if you have a halfway decent PC because it's a really old game. So it actually runs. It ran on 360 and PS3. So most PCs that anyone would have right now that can play any game will probably play that one. And you can up the FOV too, which makes it even more scary and more tense. So if you ever wanted to replay it, I would definitely recommend checking it out on Game Pass PC because it definitely that game holds up big time.
And it's like, not only is there the alien, but you have to deal with the Joes, and the Joes are fucking everywhere, and they're creepy as hell.
They're so creepy. Yeah. You're not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strange people.
Yeah. Nope. That game, that game was one of my favorites from that era too. But that's awesome. So it seems like in this quarter, you kind of like bid farewell, at least for now, to Xbox, but because of how much these games, like specifically The Last of Us, Uncharted, Heavy Rain, I'm sure that you also had fun like with the multiplayer games as well, like Battlefield 4. But those three that you mentioned, those are the types of games that really make gaming shine as an art form, and more so than like an entertainment activity or hobby, but more as an art form, which I imagine is one of the catalysts to kind of inspiring you to want to like start Games Bulletin and cover it. I'm sure that the fun you had in the multiplayer games of Battlefield 4, while fun, those aren't the things that would necessarily inspire somebody to want to do this, right? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like multiplayer games for me are like a social thing in a sense. Like they're kind of my version of going down the pub and having a drink with friends. Like I'll sit at home and maybe I'll have a drink, more than likely have a cup of tea because I'm British, and I'll sit there and like play some video games with my friends and just have a laugh. But when I want that escapism, when I want to fully immerse myself in a world, that's when I go down the single player route, and that's when I'll start to go to these. I think that's why I'm drawn to more story heavy games as well. It's something that's come up in Play Along Podcast a lot. I know I do it anyway, but any game we play, I'll always talk about the plot. I talked about the plot of Ocarina, I talked about the plot of Kentucky Route. Like, it's one of my big issues with Super Mario RPG is the lack of plot in that game. And so it's something that's always been ingrained in me. And I think it started with Metal Gear back on the PS1, and then games like The Last of Us and Heavy Rain have kind of reinforced this. And it became, when I started Games Bulletin, I was following another news page on Instagram, and that was kind of when I started to notice the patterns that I hadn't really noticed before. Like, I started to notice like, these developers are being crunched a lot, and people are talking about crunch. Like, what is crunch? And these companies are adding shit tons of microtransactions into their game. Like, what's the benefit of that? Is it purely just revenue? How do they make that money? Like, and kind of getting into the underbelly of it. That's my jam. I don't really just like multiplayer games. I like as a social thing, I said, but I'm definitely much more of a single player narrative driven gamer.
Cool. Well, we have one more quarter left, and that will be from 2015 until present day. But again, before we start, let's put one last coin in the machine and take a sneak peek at what games were like in that era.
Path, are we clear?
This is my favorite part. Exciting.
Eyes up, Guardian. It worked. You're alive. You're gonna see a lot of things you won't understand.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Game Awards.
Fuck the Oscars, Fuck the Oscars!
And the winner for Game of the Year 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020 is...
Xbox Nights.
Evil is evil. Lesser, greater, middling, makes no difference.
Evil the hell can conjure. All the wickedness that mankind can produce. We will send unto them only you.
Don't worry, loves. Cavalry's here.
How you share your games on PS4.
Boy.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Xbox One.
TV and movies? TV. Xbox. Watch TV.
Sports. Sport television.
Call of Duty. Call of Duty. Call of Duty. Call of Duty.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Today, I'm pleased to announce Xbox One backward compatibility.
Project Scorpio will be the next addition to the Xbox One family.
Xbox Game Pass, a way to give gamers the ultimate freedom to play.
ZeniMax has an amazing track record of building great games. Next holiday, Xbox Series X will lead us into the future of console gaming.
I think you are now ready to hear what happened 100 years ago.
Well, no king rules forever, as Xbox took one of the biggest falls a platform has ever seen, and Sony rose to the occasion and took command of the living room by releasing Game of the Year candidate after Game of the Year candidate. Desperate times called for desperate measures, though, as Xbox shot for the moon and completely changed the way we pay for games with Xbox Game Pass. All of that happened while Nintendo completely disrupted the handheld market, merging it with traditional consoles to meteoric success with the Nintendo Switch. Ben, what devices did you game on, or do you game on? What is your favorite currently, and do you remember how you got them?
Yeah, so this quarter is like probably the most crazy in terms of how many games I played, because I don't know how many games I played. I lost track. Come 2014, 2015, Games Bulletin had increased in size. I had about 10 people who were writing with me, so there were like 11 of us in total.
Nice.
I was at EGX, which is a conference here in the UK, which is like one of the biggest. I think it's the second biggest conference in Europe, like just after Gamescom. And I was
cool.
We would go as like members of press, and we would interview developers and play the games and get review codes and stuff. And this was the quarter where I really, really grew a love for indie games. Indie developers were super, super friendly to me. And I don't want to say that AAA developers shunned me, but like it's business at the end of the day. You know, I don't have enough of a reach to qualify for the time of day with them. So the indie crowd was kind of where I found myself. At this point, it was mainly PS4 and my PC. I'd started to game on my PC because of certain games that were reviewed on there. And then later on in the quarter, my other half, Ellie, she bought me an Xbox One. And I honestly didn't touch it that much until recently. There were a couple of games I used it, and this is such a bad use for an Xbox, but I used it as my streaming and recording console. So basically, for anyone who streams or does YouTube with a PS4, you'll know that it's a pain in the arse. You have to go into the settings and turn off the copyright protection and then connect your capture card. And Xbox, you just plug it in, it automatically detects it, automatically turns it off. It's just a time saver, and it's just such less hassle. So the Xbox became like my go-to for streaming and recording. And then my PS4 was kind of like my personal console. And that was a lot of like narrative heavy stuff again, and like a lot of multiplayer, because it's only recently that I stopped playing my PS4 as much, because one of my good friends, Reese, he was playing on PS4 at the time, so I was playing on PS4 because that's where he was, and we made friends with other people. They all played on PS4. Like there was no merit to me having Xbox Live because I didn't know anybody on that platform. And one of the big games that kind of took over my online time during this quarter was Rocket League. I downloaded it on a whim because it was a PlayStation Plus game, so it was free. Why not? And I've not really stopped playing it. I don't play it as much as I used to, but it's still a game that I go to, and it's still a game that I enjoy playing online. But later on, I want to say about 2 years ago, I got a Switch, and that was like another big turning point for me, because I have a bike that I ride into work now, but back then I was using public transport, and I was commuting like an hour and a half a day. So to have this console I could take with me and get 3 hours worth of gaming and then put it on a dock and continue at home, that was like fucking revolutionary for me. That was such a such a game changer. And being somebody who loves indie games, the Switch marketplace is full of great indie games. There are a lot of really, really good indie games on there. And I would say it's second to PC. I feel like PC probably has more choice, but I feel like the quality of the games on Switch are probably of a higher standard, just because I feel like there's not always, but there seems to be a bit more quality control that goes on in terms of Nintendo's eShop compared to Steam.
Yeah, there's more of a process that you have to go through as a developer. Like there's a lot more I guess qualifications. There's like a guideline of all these different things that you have to hit in order to run, whereas Steam, it's like I don't even know if launching the game is a criteria. It's
I mean,
there's not much.
It used to be I think they've stopped it now, but you used to just have like the green light process. If enough people voted you just got your game on Steam. That was it, and it ended up as an absolute shit show, and they had to change it. But yeah, crazy amount of games I played and reviewed. I mean, about a month or so ago, I ended up stopping doing Games Bulletin. I will come back, and I will do some sort of content as like a solo creator. Like I've got the podcast with Jared and that, and I'll get back into streaming and stuff. But the reason I stopped is because I'm a perfectionist. I'm a perfectionist. If I can't do something to what I deem to be the right standard, then I won't do it. And so the whole point of Games Bulletin is that it was an outlet. And as time grew on, more and more writers kind of left because of like full-time job commitments or like, sort of university, thing like that. And it got to the point where it was just me. And I can't do the job of an outlet as one single person, and
no.
To some people it might sound strange. They just be like, oh yeah, just do what you can. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be an outlet. I wanted to act almost as if there was like 5 or 6 people writing 4 articles a day, doing 2 reviews a week. Like it just got to the point where it wasn't feasible and it was too much of a mental toll. So I was just like, do you know what? I'm going to step back and I'll come back at some point after like a little rest as like a solo creator, and I can just kind of do things in my own sort of strides. But in terms of the games I've got here for the quarter, most of these I played on the PS4 actually. Like I've got on here, I've got Last of Us Part 2. That was like a big title. Insomniac's Spiderman, another great title. Sekiro, I fucking love Sekiro. I hate Sekiro, but I love Sekiro. Shadows Die Twice. It's Reese, the same friend, he got me onto Dark Souls 3, and we played that together for a couple of YouTube videos that we made. And then I saw Sekiro, and I was like, man, because I didn't mention it, but like I played a lot of Tenchu back in the second quarter on the PS1, Tenchu Stealth Assassins. And so when I saw Sekiro, I was like, man, this is Dark Souls and Tenchu combined. Like this is fucking amazing. And I'm still yet to beat it. I kind of like, I'm coming to it when I can. But yeah, Sekiro was a big one. The one that I've got on here that is my personal favorite RPG of all time is Persona 5. That is like, to me, as near of a perfect RPG as you could get personally.
Was that one of your first kind of forays into JRPGs? That's the first one I think that you've mentioned.
Yeah, I'd say that's my first JRPG, definitely. I'd always been put off by JRPGs up until that point because having never played one, the only thing I knew about JRPGs is they're really fucking long and there are a lot of time commitment. That was the only things I knew about that game, like about JRPGs in general. So,
which is true.
Yeah, I was going to
100%
say
true.
it's true, but I got the chance to review Persona 5. It was Persona 5 Royal, which was like the updated version that came out.
The even longer version.
Yes, even longer version. And I ended up doing like 115 hours playtime on that game.
Jeez.
And I loved every single second of it. The combat's great, the soundtrack's great, the story's great, the pacing. I personally love the pacing. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea because there's a lot of like downtime where you just kind of do day-to-day student stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, personally, I loved that. But in terms of like indie games, there's some really, really great indie games out there. There's a game called Town of Light by a publisher called Wired Productions. They're an indie publisher based here in the UK. And
they did Falconeer, I think.
They did do Falconeer, yes. They did Falconeer. They've got another game coming out soon called Martha is Dead, which looks absolutely brilliant. But Town of Light is essentially a narrative walking sim that takes you through a abandoned mental institute in Italy. And it's a real place. The development team went there and 3D scanned everything and took pictures and recreated the asylum like to perfection inside a video game. And it explores the treatment of patients back in the 1800s and, you know, women who were put in there for like hysteria and silly things that would never ever be a thing these days. That's a great game. And I don't think it ever actually got made, but there was a really, really great game that I played at EGX called Misfolded. And what it was is essentially you played as like this black blob. It was cutesy. It's not like sort of grotesque or anything. It was like cutesy sort of black blob. And everyone else was like colourful. But the whole idea of the game is that the guy who made the game used to be a neurosurgeon. I'm not shitting you, like fully qualified neurosurgeon. And he specialized in Alzheimer's. And the game was supposed to be a deep dive narrative portrayal of Alzheimer's as a disease and the effect it has on people, and kind of exploring what it's like to experience it, which was just absolutely crazy. And I'm kind of sad it never came to fruition because that was a great game. But
was there any like other indie games that like more recent ones that you've, because it seems like for those who don't know, we are in the year 2 of a global pandemic where all games are getting delayed, especially AAA games, and indie games are, because of the just natural ability to be like more agile. A lot of indie developers were already working from home and stuff like that. They were able to kind of get games out during the pandemic. So they're kind of experiencing right now a windfall of people gravitating towards their games that may not otherwise have, just because they're the only new games to check out. And there's a lot of really, really good ones that have come out in the last few years. So I'm wondering if there's anything recently that you have indie wise that you really, really like or really had a fun time playing.
I'm trying to think. This is what I mean, because this is when it gets awkward, because there's so many bloody games that I've played.
That's true.
There was, I mean, really recently I started playing Splitgate.
Yeah,
which is a really, really great FPS. It's like old school Quake with Halo and Portal mixed together. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, that game is really cool, and that game's developer is really, really transparent, which is really refreshing. They're very active on Twitter and very good at communicating with the community, which has been really, really nice to see. They've gotten a lot of well-deserved well deserved success with Splitgate. But yeah, no, that's really really cool. Persona 5, you said, was your first kind of foray into JRPGs. It sounds like you kind of really really enjoyed the usual suspects in terms of like PlayStation exclusives, like The Last of Us 2, Spiderman, etc. One thing that I noticed with all the quarters is that you typically had kind of a like more of a like, I guess you might consider it to be like a party style game. Like in quarter one, you had like Sonic 2 and Streets of Rage that would be like kind of like a coach co-op split screen whatever. In quarter two, you had Bomberman, which you said you play with the multi-tap and stuff like that. In quarter three, I think you said, looking through my notes here, I think you said that you and your dad played a lot of co-op with, or no, sorry, you and your friend play a lot of co-op with Left 4 Dead.
Yeah.
Left 4 Dead 2. And now in this quarter, you have written down Rocket League, which is very similar to like Bomberman in terms of the type of experience that you're going to have playing with friends. So I'm wondering if that's kind of a byline through your whole life of gaming that you ever really, really recognize, or if having like that kind of, I don't necessarily want to say family experience, because one of them is like an M-rated zombie massacring game, but like that kind of like just kick your feet up with your friends and I guess maybe drink some tea or some beer or whatever, and just like turn your brain off and just have fun, like that type of game. You don't necessarily need to like pay attention to like a riveting story. You don't necessarily need to be like full sweat, like first person, like competitive, but it's more of just a fun party game and having that experience with your friends. I'm wondering if that's something that is intentional, or if that's something that just kind of like naturally gravitate toward.
I mean, I hadn't considered it until you brought it up, to be honest. Like I mean, even in quarter four, when you was talking about that, like some of the games that stand out to me are like Luigi's Mansion 3, Overcooked, but even then
that's a good one.
Overcooked is a brilliant game. If you're looking for a game to test your relationships with people, Overcooked is a great game to do that. But even then, like Overcooked, I played with my girlfriend. Luigi's Mansion 3, I played with my girlfriend. Like I guess what it is it comes back from like I'd say more sort of quarter two, where I started to become a bit more of like a serious gamer rather than like a hobby gamer. And all of the games that I remember playing in quarter two, my sister was there every single time, because it was like almost like a compromise of my parents. Like, if you're going to play video games, take your sister with you. So like she was there, she was there through like Metal Gear Solid. Even when I had my PS3, like she was there for like, we played Dragon Age 2 together. She'd sit and watch, and she'd make the choices with me. I'm pretty sure she was there when I was playing Fallout 3. So I feel like there are almost two sides to me as a gamer, if you like. Like, you've got the social side who likes a couch co-op or who likes playing online, and then you've got the gamer who likes that deep narrative and who likes throwing themselves in the world. But yeah, I hadn't thought about that. It's definitely a thing that transgresses all the way through from like the very, very beginning.
For sure. Speaking of the narrative gamer side of you, I guess, for lack of a better term, one thing that I noticed when I thought about, like when I went through this myself, and again with in episode 2 with Keith, I feel like quarter one is when you either play games a little bit or you don't play a lot, but it's kind of like the origins and stuff like that. Right now, nowadays, with things like Game Pass, PS Plus, games with gold, Steam sales, there's just so many games, like you had said earlier, you alluded to, that you kind of just play everything because there's so many things. But in quarter one or quarter two and quarter three, though, at those times you're between like the age of like 10 and like early 20s, where either have no money or very little money, and you had to be a lot more deliberate with what you're playing, because the ability to get those games is like not like almost non-existent. So my question is you had said in quarter two is when you kind of really got sucked into narratives, like games are becoming more of an art form and less of like kind of a toy or a fun activity. And you had cited Metal Gear Solid, like a lot of people do, as being the pivotal game for that. And one kind of quality, I guess, with Metal Gear Solid, in contrast to the games that you brought up in quarter three, is Metal Gear Solid is like a very linear story where you don't really have any choice in what's going to happen. It's just a really good story that's told to you. And in quarter three, you had mentioned games like Fable, Fallout, LA Noire. All of those games have a very heavy emphasis on player choice, whether it's doing good things or bad things, whether it's like helping one faction or the other in Vegas or New Vegas, or in LA Noire, like when you're interrogating people, like you can make different decisions based on like their facial animations. Like, I mean, you've played all these games, you clearly know how they work, but there's a stark contrast between the very linear style of Metal Gear and the very open player choice style of those games. And I'm wondering if there's kind of a parallel between how you really enjoyed kind of taking a ride on a roller coaster, like a linear like playground or linear ride. I'm sorry, I'm rambling here, of Metal Gear. And then as you aged and got older, you wanted more of a sandbox experience where you can make these decisions. And I'm wondering if that kind of experience is one of the reasons why you wanted to branch out in not just how you play games, but how you how games exist in your hobby, because you then branched out from just playing games and maybe reading magazines to writing about games and telling like you're writing your opinions and reviews and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think in all honesty, it was kind of my parents that did that, because what would happen is that in the earlier days, I had very restrictive time as to how much of a video game I could play. And so it was kind of like, you know, my mum would say to me, like, you can have 2 hours and then you're out with your friends for the rest of the day. It's just like, okay, shit, what am I going to play for 2 hours? And so games like Metal Gear or like, you know, Siphon Filter or Crash Bandicoot, they're games where after 2 hours you can be like, cool, right, I'm coming back tomorrow. I'm done with this for now. But as I got older and as I got like my PS2 and my Xbox 360, it was kind of like it was almost like a reins, you know, like a reins you put on like a child. I don't know if you guys have them in Canada, but like you have like a harness, like so you can stop the kid from running. It's like I got set free, and all of a sudden I was like bombarded with these games where there was like a sandbox and so much choice, and I was like absolutely mesmerized by what I could do in that world, and I just went absolutely fucking nuts and just made up for all this time I kind of lost when I was younger, like, and not experiencing some of these bigger games. I mean, I wouldn't say that games were necessarily as open world as they were on the 360, but you know, even like a Final Fantasy, you know, like I never would have dreamed of playing Final Fantasy 7 just because of the time commitment. I didn't have the time at that age, which is ironic, I know, because like I said, most people will have like more time when they're a child and young teenager, and it kind of I flipped reversed it a little bit, but like
nice.
Yeah, I just as a youngster I wouldn't have had the time to play those longer games, and so I feel like I made up for that. And yeah.
Do you think like playing those open world games where you have so many different choices and you can spend more time kind of like venturing off the beaten path and being able to see like all these little extra kind of touches that the developer puts in. Like in Fallout, you can Fallout for specifically Fallout. They do a ton, and all Bethesda games, to be honest, they do a lot of environmental storytelling. And in Fallout, you could venture off the beaten path and find something that's like super cool that like maybe 1% of people will see. It's not a quest. It's not an item. It's just like maybe like I know in Elder Scrolls Online, I found like a skeleton that was like leaning against a tree with an apple on his head and an arrow through his face. And like obviously like that's like a shooting an apple. Like you get what that means, but that's something that most people won't see because there's no reason to go there other than curiosity. And I'm wondering if that curiosity and being drawn towards those open games where you do have the freedom to explore, if seeing all the little details that games can have, if that is some or a part of what sparked your interest into wanting to dig into them further with Games Bulletin and all the industry research and stuff like that, or if that's something you ever thought about. Maybe it was just something that was more subconscious.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like it's. I think that a big part of why I kind of dived so deep into video games in terms of when I was playing like Fallout and Fable and things like that is that without going too much into it, like that period was when my parents were splitting. So in that period, there was a lot of sort of arguments and like heated discussions and like sort of like the relationship was starting to fall apart. And so I think it was kind of like an immersion thing, you know, like I would have immersed myself in whatever game I had anyway. It's just that the games I had happened to be these open world games that were built to immerse yourself in for stupid amounts of hours and find all of the, you know, I mean, like Fallout is a great example. You know, you can go to the vault and each vault has its own tale. There's, I think is it Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas? There's one of them where the guy clones himself and it's just full of clones.
Fallout 3.
Yeah, it's just full of clones.
I'm pretty
of
sure it's Fallout 3.
And there's ones where like they like you're like, oh, that's that one, but then in this one they've like elected a bum, like a homeless person, to be the overseer of the fort, and like, you know, each of them had their own. It might have been 4, but it was like each of them had their own story because all of the vaults were their own experiments, and so being able to just like literally switch off and forget what was happening and kind of immerse myself in that world, I think it was almost like a
coping kind of.
Yeah, it was also like a planets aligning kind of moment. You know, it's like I just happened to have these sandbox games, and so I think it was just sheer coincidence.
Cool. Yeah, and that kind of like leads into, you might have even just already answered it, to one of my last few questions here that I asked everybody is if there's, having just kind of talked about all the games you played and all your like favorite games, favorite memories from your whole life of playing games, is there any way that games affected your life in one way or another, positive or negative, affected your life outside of gaming? Like whether it's playing a game with someone, meeting someone from playing games, or using games to help you through something. Like,
I'd definitely say like they've always done it. I would say, you know, like I would, when I was younger, I'd play games with my friends and sort of do like couch co-op and go around a school friend's house. And then as I got older, it was like I would start to play games with my friends online, and I would meet people, like especially more the sort of later 2 quarters, I would meet friends of friends online who would then become friends of mine. And through doing Games Bulletin, like I met Dan, who is like a super, super close friend of mine, and Jared is a good friend. Like, we lost touch for a couple of years when he went to university, and then we got back in touch, and now I'm a co-host on a podcast with him, and it's like games. It's almost cliche to say, but they are literally who I am. Do you know? Like, it's not like it's not a fucking hobby. It's who I am as a person, and it's how I express myself, and it's how I switch off after a day of work, and it's how I socialize. You know, there's a reason that I have video game characters tattooed on me, and it's literally because they are my identity. They are who I am. But I also just one game I want to mention that I don't think has been mentioned on an episode before. I don't know if you're going to let me classify it as a game, but in 2019, I fell in love with Dungeons and Dragons.
I mean, it's a
tabletop.
That counts.
I classified it as a.
I didn't know. I'll let you go in a second. I just wanted to say that it's weird because, like, in 2019, I haven't actually got to play it yet because I just like finding a group and whatnot. But like, you probably can't see it, but I have like the Dungeon Master's Guide and the player handbook and the monster manual and a couple of pre-written adventure stuff behind me. I really got into it because of Critical Role and stuff like that, and Dungeons and Daddies, which I got to talk to you about that after if you haven't heard of it. But it's funny because like right around the same age, right around the same time, I had the same. Anyways, I don't want to interrupt you too much. Go.
No.
It definitely counts.
Yeah, it's just it was like so my friend Reese, who I'd met through gaming, and like we worked together. We mentioned that we both played games, and it just went from there. That was it. Either him or his sister, I can't remember who, but one of them bought the D&D starter kit, which comes with a very, very basic set of rules and a very short, simple adventure. Yeah, the Lost Mines, exactly. Yeah. And he was like, we're thinking of playing. Do you want to join us? And I was like, fuck yeah. Like, I've always wanted to play D&D. Just never had a group to play with. And yes, there you go, man. Some D20s just sitting there.
Yeah.
And so you watched Critical Role. I watched Heroes and Halfwits. That was my thing, which is a Rooster Teeth.
Okay, I've heard. Is that the one with the girl from True Blood? I forget her name. No, that's Relics and Rarities.
Yeah,
There's so many of them. Feel like I heard that name before though.
Yeah, but that was like, I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to want to do it. So I watched Heroes and Halfwits, a series on YouTube by Rooster Teeth, and that was it. Like, that was it. I was hooked. We played, and then I was the DM with them for for about 2 years or so, and just because of time commitments, we haven't managed to do anything. But I was talking to Jared and Kai recently, and they mentioned wanting to try D&D, and I was like, yeah, I'll DM for you if you want to, man. Like, I'm dying to play D&D. I fucking love it. Like, it's nice. Anyone who hasn't played it, I recommend looking into it. Definitely. It can be a bit daunting at first.
There's a stigma, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But it's the ultimate version of playing a game, because it's as much of an RPG as you can physically get, because you are deciding what your character does in that spur of the moment. Like, there's no QTEs, there's no preset decisions. It is literally, what do you as a player want to do? And if you're somebody who's into RPGs or into like decision making and things like that in their video games, then D&D is 100% something to look into. Like, I mean, Critical Role, Heroes and Halfwits, like I said, there's a podcast called Venture Maidens. They're a really, really great D&D podcast. Just listen to any of those and you'll get the rough gist of what's going on. and it will be rocky at first because it's a very mechanic heavy game to understand. There's lots of rules and set ways that things are done, but yeah, definitely if you're into RPGs, I definitely recommend looking into D&D.
Cool. I have two more quick questions left, and then we can wrap up. First one that I ask everybody is, after talking about everything from the beginning to now, do you feel like you enjoy games more now than you did in Q1, or do you think you enjoyed games more in Q1 than now? Like, if you had to paint the trajectory of your fandom, is it a incline or a decline?
It's such a hard question.
Or a flat line. I'll give you that out.
I feel like I feel like I enjoy video games more now than I did before. I feel like it's a different type of enjoyment, though. You know, like, it's in quarters 2 and 3, it was more like, oh my god, this story, oh my god, this, that. And now it's more like, hey, I really like the direction of this game. I really like the camera angle that they're using to portray this thing that's happening. I really like the sounds that they're using, and it's much more of a, it's gone from being like, oh my god, this is awesome, to like, I respect this craft and I respect the creative decisions that have been made in this game.
Cool. That's a good answer. And the last question is, looking into the future, is there any upcoming games, maybe even like hardware or technologies that you're looking forward to, that you think if you were to come and do an episode of Insert Coin 7 years from now, that might make the list for what would then be quarter 4?
There are some coming up. There's, I don't know if it's, I think it might have just released recently, actually, but there's a game called 12 Minutes by Annapurna. Yesterday, I have my eye on that. That looks really fucking good. To be honest, it's like, at the minute, I'm kind of just trying to play all the games that I missed when I was doing Games Bulletin, like, super heavily. Because that was, like, people say to me, oh, it must have been, and it was fun, but it was my second job. That's how I describe it. Like, the amount of hours I put into that, like, just, you know, I never played the Hitman reboot. I only very recently played Doom 2016.
Wow.
I haven't played Hades. Like, all of these games, I've never played Undertale. So there are all of these, like, really big games that I've missed. The one I have my eye on at the minute is Black Myth Wukong. That is very, very interesting. I'm very optimistic about that. I'm, to be honest, like, it's it's kind of shit, because being as invested in the business side of it as I am, it does kind of ruin my hype and my optimism for for things that are coming out.
Yeah, I can feel that. I kind of felt myself kind of leaning in towards that the more I like started reading about, like, oh, this company's doing this badly, or microtransactions, Battlefront 2, yada yada, loot boxes. I definitely was like all into that, and that was honestly one of the catalysts why I started Game Positive in the first place, because I could feel myself, like, I don't know, like going to the dark side, where I was like, yeah, that trailer's cool, but like, it's probably gonna suck, or what if this happens and it will suck, or the last thing that was similar to this sucked, so I don't want to get my hopes up. I kind of missed like what you talked about a while ago, like in quarter 2, I believe, where like before you would just walk into Blockbuster and be like, whoa, look at the cover art, the Blood Omen 2, it has like a vampire, it has a sweet like curved sword on it, look at the back, whoa, you suck blood, by like literally the blood just shoots out of them from their, that looks awesome, I want to play this game. Like, that's all it took was pictures on a box. And now it's like you have to You have to watch the trailers. You have to go on forums and discuss it. You have to look at their past. You have to look at who's making it. You have to look at what the monetization model might end up being. You have to look at previews. You have to look at like Twitch streamer. Like, I wish that I could just see a trailer or a screenshot, get really excited, and just go into the game thinking I'm going to like it instead of hoping I don't hate it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of. I think that's the mindset I'm at now. Is that like if you'd asked me that 2 or 3 years ago, I was so into like just sort of like pessimism about the gaming space and how it was. But nowadays I look and I'm like, oh, okay, that looks cool. But I'm like, I'll wait for a gameplay trailer. And then the gameplay trailer comes out and I'm like, okay, I like the look of the gameplay. That's it for me. Like, if I like the look of the gameplay, I'm buying that game. I'm not going to wait for the reviews, and I'm not going to I'm not, I don't like to, I'll take reviews into consideration, but they're not a be all and end all for me, because at the end of the day, they are just a personal opinion. And there are those games out there that are absolutely hated by the mass majority, but are games that a very small cult following do enjoy. And you're never going to know unless you play that. Like, if you just jump on the bandwagon and hate a game for the sake of hating the game, you might miss out on a gem. So now I see a trailer, I see screenshots, and I think, do you know what? Yeah, I'll get around to that. But now I have Xbox Games Pass. Like, my friend Reese, he doesn't play on his PS4 anymore. He plays PC, so I'm not using PS Plus. I've cancelled my PS Plus subscription, and I got Xbox Games Pass Ultimate, got the Xbox Live, so that's £11 a month. Ellie is slowly getting into video games, so she can dabble her foot, and it's just, for this moment in my life, it's the perfect kind of format. And I mean, Sony need to do something, because otherwise Microsoft are just going to blow them out of the water. But, it's like, you got Hades on there now. And, I saw a thing earlier. It was like pre-install the new Forza Horizon, ready for when that releases. Like, so I'm getting all these day one things for $10.99 a month. So I'll just go on there and be like, do you know what? I like the look of that. I'll give that a go.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's kind of exactly where I am. One thing I did want to just quickly mention before we wrap, because I have to. There wasn't really any mention of you playing Halo.
I've never touched a Halo
in any
game.
of these quarters. Are you kidding me?
Never in my life have I touched a Halo game.
Okay.
And I know that
so
hits you
quite
hard.
Shocking.
I'm sorry.
I'll have the Hug My Master Chief helmet that's up there. Well, you have Game Pass, so I think that it's a great 120 gigs to jump into for Halo Master Chief Collection.
If it helps you, it's definitely on my list to play. I do want to experience it.
It's co-op. There you go. You said Ellie's getting into it. You put it on easy or whatever she's comfortable with, and you can play through like a decade of sci-fi FPS perfection.
I'll be sure to let you know what I think.
Awesome. Well, I think that's going to do it for now. We've gone over 2 hours, which I think is a insert coin record. Thank you, Ben, for joining me. I'm just going to give you the floor right quick to shout out whatever you need to shout out, and let everyone who's listening know where they can find you and where they can find your work.
Yeah, so I mean, me personally, I'm probably most active on Twitter. I'm not really active on there a lot, but it's @bulletin_Ben. But the main thing that I would promote is the podcast with Jared and Kai, Play Along Podcast, @PlayAlongPod on Instagram and Twitter. Available all podcast platforms, and come play along with us. Tell us why we're on about Super Mario RPG and why it's one of the greatest games that was ever made, and recommend some stuff for us to play.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Ben, for joining. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. Really means a lot that you were able to make it this far. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If anyone else out there that is listening and wants to be on the show, I'm looking for anyone who would like to be interviewed. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who has a podcast or has like some sort of cross promotion opportunity. I just really like talking about people's games and their gaming history. So hit me up and on any of the social medias if you think that you'd like to talk to me for 2 hours and 14 minutes about what games you liked when you were a kid. But that's a wrap for us. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you guys soon.